Hey everybody, it's Grant from Positive Feather Creations. If this is the first time you've heard of Positive Feather Creations, have a good look at my rolling billboard here, and it'll give you a little bit of an idea of what I do. Alright, let's take a little walk on our access road on the property to the back of our shop. We live on 5 acres. And this 5 acres was logged, actually about 160 acre parcel here, was logged back in the 70s on private land, and it was allowed to grow back as natural as can be. So the majority of this property is mixed. Okay, so the reason for this video today is to talk about bat houses. Not so much a tutorial how to make, but more to get into the specifics of the features. Bats are in sharp decline worldwide and in Canada. And I started making bat houses in 2017. And I sold a fair number. I'll get more into that later. Okay, so let's head into the shop. Okay, here we are in my shop now. All bat houses that I make use about 15.5 feet of Western red cedar. I like to use cedar that has a moisture content of between 15 and 19%. If you start manufacturing product with any higher moisture content than that, you tend to get cupping in the boards. That's not just cedar, that's all sorts of boards. Once you get these planed down to 3/4 of an inch, that's when any kind of cupping might take place if it's too wet. Cedar is very hard to come by in northern BC. I know that might be hard for some of you to believe, but a good quality piece of cedar like this is usually from private land. In the Crown Forest, you cannot collect Western red cedar. The Crown Forests are allocated to the industrial clear-cut logging companies to take 1 or 2 species out and pile up the rest and burn it. They will not let anybody else have a chance at it, which is ridiculous if you want to, value-added products for BC, but it is what it is, and maybe more on that later. When it is planed down, it looks like this, or can look like this. This is a little older piece. It starts to have a little more red in it, and the grains are a little bit tighter. On a cautionary note, if you're going to be using Western red cedar in your bat houses or any other product, you need to use a respirator that filters the dust and organic vapors. I use a 3M product, and it's comfortable. I wear it all day long in the shop, no matter what kind of wood I'm cutting. Cedar has some chemicals in it that if it gets into your lungs, or when it gets into your lungs from sanding or sawing, that is pretty harmful stuff. Not quite into the world of or the league of asbestos, but it can be pretty bad and built up over time. I've actually known carpenters that have had to quit because of whatever the respiratory disease was brought on by cedar. So once these are planed down to 3/4 inch, and I use this thing over here, it's actually called a planer. How novel, it's a pretty cool machine, very loud. I take them over to this chop 'em up saw right here, cut them to the proper length, take them over to the loss of finger saw, the table saw, probably responsible for more missing fingers and carpenters in this world than any other saw out there. I still have all mine. And get these squared up properly. Because these are only 8 inches wide, I have to laminate these together to get them into the 17-inch area. And I use a waterproof glue for this. And I use a Makita biscuit cutter to cut biscuits and insert them in the sides, get them squished together to sit overnight, and they become very, very strong. Okay, next we'll look into the insides and what makes our bat houses different from others that you might be seeing and looking at for research. Okay, let's talk about the inside of the bat house for a minute. As you can see, the inside of the Paws to Feather Creations bat houses are 5-chambered. Okay, I use 3/8 standard plywood on the inside, and each piece is scored about 3/4 inches apart all the way across from one end side to the other, from top to bottom. You'll notice that I do not use any mesh. The reason I don't use mesh is because there is a possibility that it will acquire and hold a lot more feces than if you go with a standard design like this. The Canadian Wildlife Federation was in agreement with that, and it was one of their criteria for listing the most important things in bat houses in the 3-year study. More on that later. The landing pad is scored 1 inch apart all the way. Kerfed is what's called. So the bats can land on this and crawl up into the inside. At the top, you can see that they are staggered, and there's quite a bit of room from the top of the partitions to the top of the bat house. That way they can crawl up and over and get around the bat house a lot more efficiently. In the middle of each one of these is about a 2-inch hole drilled in. You probably won't be able to see it on each one of these partitions. Again, letting the bats go front to back, where there could be some difference in temperature on the inside on a hot day. I want to talk a little bit about ventilation in your bat houses. When you're researching bat houses, you're going to see that a lot of them have venting on the sides or venting along the front. But one of the most important things I find with the bat houses is maintaining the darkness on the inside while still having it vented. Now you will notice right at the top here, there's about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch gap. Actually, that's about a 1/2 inch. All the way across the top here. Okay? Heat rises, as you all know, and when the bat house top is put on, I have left a gap at the front where the heat can rise and escape through here, while maintaining the darkness on the inside of this 5-chambered bat house. So who buys bat houses? If you have a property like this, a rural property like this, and you have lots of mosquitoes, which we don't have very much anymore on this particular property, but you want to control them a little bit better biologically, you can buy a bat house and try to attract them on your own. Okay? That's the first type. People who are ecologically friendly, want to help the environment, and want natural mosquito solutions. The second type of person who buys bat houses are the ones that have infestations in their houses, and they have to give them an alternate place to live while they go through the 7-step process you'll see on bcbats.ca to evict them. Those people who buy those bat houses and follow the steps properly are almost 100% assured that they are going to be able to have bats in their bat houses, and they might even be having to add bat houses as the colony grows. In fact, I just had a lady pick up 3 bat houses yesterday who bought 2 about 3 years ago, and her colony is getting big enough that she has to expand it. And even some of the fly-in fishing camps and some of your resorts, like the Mile Lake Resort, has bought multiple bat houses from me. Okay, so let's go over to the trailer and let's grab the finished product out and have a look and go into a few more details. If you can hear that sound that sounds like a airplane that's been anchored to the ground, Somebody's trying to dig a well around here, and they've been trying for 3 weeks. Or drill a well. That's going to cost them $1 or $2. So if the noise is there and you can hear it, I apologize. Okay, here is the inside of the Paws to Feather Rolling Roadshow trailer. Look at all this cool stuff in here. Birdhouses, suet feeders, more birdhouses, more birdhouses. Squirrel feeders, mason bee houses, little picnic tables ready to go for Christmas. And a bat house. So let's grab this and take it outside and let's go over some of the details. So before I get into the finished product, I want to talk about a few things here. I work with a couple of organizations here in Canada. This is one of them, the Community Bat Programs of BC. They have endorsed and approved my product for sale. That wasn't a simple thing to do. They had to see plans. They had made many suggestions to change, which I did, and I added some of my own stuff, as you saw in the previous videos. And the other company I work for, or the other organization, you probably know it as the Canadian Wildlife Federation, for their Hinterland Who's Who commercials. Growing up as a kid, whenever that sound came on, I was in front of the TV right away. They're the largest nonprofit organization in Canada. They are run extremely efficiently, and they have a very low overhead for administrative costs. Okay, one of the cool things about the Canadian Wildlife Federation is they actually just finished a 3-year study on bat houses from across Canada. They looked at 1,500 different bat houses, and they talked to the owners or the manufacturers and what they were looking for. And of the 1,500 bat houses they've looked at, looking at heat dissipation throughout, general construction materials, they came up with 5 across Canada that they recommend. And I'm very proud to say that the bat houses that I've been making since 2017 are now endorsed and approved by the Canadian Wildlife Federation. Jump onto their website and have a look. It's a pretty amazing group. Wow, what a bluebird day. Anyways, let's get back to this. Here we go. Here is the final product. It is, as I say, Western Red Cedar. It is 17 inches wide. The front is 24 inches from top to bottom. The sides are 7 1/4. The back of this is 33 inches. And it's capped at the top to stop birds from pecking at it, or even for for bugs to lay eggs if they happen to. It's also sealed with silicone along the top to prevent moisture from getting in. And it is stamped with Paws to Feather Creations brand and handcrafted by yours truly. I've made a ton of these. In fact, without a word of a lie, I have probably made more than anybody else in the world in bat houses and sold them. And I'm on to my second $1 million in the bank account. Yeah, right. I don't do this for money. I'm doing it because I really enjoy it, and I still have to charge a little bit of money for them. I've made almost 400 of these, 385 to be exact. In a weight, these are 25 pounds each. Times 385 is almost 6 tons. If you want to get a Paws to Feather Creations bat house or any else other product within BC, you can text me at this phone number, or you can message me through Facebook. That's in BC. Any buyers outside of BC, within Canada and North America, or actually worldwide, do a Google search for P2F Creations, and the first things that come up will be my Etsy page, and you can go to that page for details on all the product. Okay, so thanks for being patient for me, or with me. I don't make a lot of these videos, as you can probably tell. I'm going to go spend about 100 hours trying to put together 4 or 5 minutes of information on bat houses for you. The next slide I'm going to put in here will show the QR code with links to the Canadian Wildlife Federation and to the community bat programs of BC. All right, thanks for watching. See you later.